Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Douglas, and welcome to the Deploy Friday webcast. This is our first episode for 2021, so I'm hoping that you all had a very relaxing and healthy break over the new year, and that you're ready to go into 2021 and deploy great software throughout the year, and join us every Friday for this webcast. To start the year off, I will be speaking with these guests who you see today about a piece of software called Pizzly. And we're going to get deeply into what that is, but in short, it's an OAuth integration proxy that simplifies the work around connecting different services through APIs. And everybody knows that these days, APIs are everything, and when you build a web app, you really want to be able to go out and bring data in from all of the services that you use, and APIs are the way to do that. So it is my pleasure to introduce our guests, Alice Varnier. She is the head of marketing at Bearer, which is the company behind Pizzly, the software. And then we have Cédric Fabianski, who is the CTO and co-founder of Bearer, and then Guillaume Montard, who is the CEO and co-founder as well. Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Robert. Happy New Year, and glad to be here with the audience and you. That's really nice.
So let's start off by having somebody give a really good definition of what Pizzly is, because that's the topic of today's show, and it really helps if everybody listening has kind of like in their mind where it fits, how you use it, what it's for, what problem does it solve, where do I get it? So who wants to take that question? Guillaume, maybe you as CEO, you should come out very executive with the elevator.
Very high level. You know, I'm not going to go too deep in the technicalities, but I think you actually did a great introduction. It's really Pizzly is all about being able to consume APIs in a very simple and fast way, and especially OAuth API. So technically, yeah, it's an HTTP proxy, and it does handle everything related to OAuth. The kind of thing that take us a lot of time, OAuth dance, getting a token, refreshing the tokens, storing the token securely, and also being able to connect with all those APIs, because sadly, OAuth is not really a standard where everybody is doing the same kind of OAuth. So if you take a Google API, a Salesforce API, a Slack API, their OAuth implementation differ all the time, which makes it very complicated, and you spend a lot of time and usually hours just to be able to connect to that API. And with Pizzly, we've embedded pre-built configuration for over 100 APIs. And actually the community, since it's a fully open source project, is adding API configuration. And so that way, you look at the API available. If it's not available, you can add a simple configuration, and then right away you're able to consume that API without having to deal with that authentication part. And this is really the biggest pain point that we've discovered when we discuss with developers. And when we think we're like now in 2021, and we use APIs every day, and if it takes like 2 or 3 hours just to be able to test an endpoint of an API to just look out at what can we build with that API? Well, it's 2 or 3 hours too much. For us, the best metrics is the time to first API call that we benchmarked basically. And for us, the goal is your time to first real API call should be like a minute, no more. So that's all the goal about Pizzly, and what we've built and what we're building with the community today. Because yes, again, it's 100% open source product.
Great, thank you. And I mean, as an open source product, you are, of course, on GitHub. I have just pasted the link to the Pizzly repository in the chat of all of the services to which we're broadcasting this right now. And I'm reading through the description, and it seems that there are a few different components in that. So one of the things that might help people understand what it is. First of all, it's like a dashboard. There's actually a screenshot of the dashboard here, and it has some of the API connectors listed, including Asana, Basecamp, Bitbucket, Dropbox, Facebook, and we mentioned Salesforce and Slack, Google Documents, Google Mail. Those are all things that apparently you can just click one of these buttons, and probably after doing the OAuth handshake, I imagine those are then connected, and Pizzly stores that authentication token and can talk to those services through their APIs. Do I understand it correctly?
Yeah, exactly. We wanted to put together a dashboard. It's kind of optional, the dashboard, but well, it's always nice to use. So you can obviously look at the APIs that are available, and when you choose, I don't know, like for example, Slack, the first thing you have to is to provide your OAuth credential, your client ID, and your client secret, where Pizzly is going to ask it for you on the dashboard, which again is hosted on your side because it's open source and you can host it on Platform.sh actually, but anywhere you want. That's the point. And with those credential set up, we're able to do that and trigger that first OAuth dance to be able to get that token, that kind of magic token that help us consume the API. And what Pizzly is going to do also is to refresh automatically that token for you. And the point is, with that token, basically you get a magic token, a magic bearer token that is valid for as long as you want, because it's going to exchange that with the real Slack token and going to ask for a refresh token when it's needed. So in your own application, in your script, in your code base, when you're going to call the Slack API, you're going to call the Slack API through that proxy with that magic bearer token, basically, and that's it. You don't have to think about authentication anymore. You don't have to think about token. You don't have to think about refresh token, storing those credentials. All of that is done for you automatically.
Incredible. That sounds like it would be so much fun just to start connecting these services and seeing how then your code can combine data. Like maybe you have an email address that it might be present in several different of those systems, and you can start doing joins across APIs. Yay!
Exactly.
That thought should scare everybody out there.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at because the basis of why Pizzly is like, when you look at all the product we're using all together every day, they're all super connected with each other. Like every day you're using tons of SaaS products that are interconnected, and when they are not, you're usually pissed off. Because well, it's not integrated, so I need to re-upload my data, I need to copy paste things, etc. And well, we all need to build more and more integration, and since there are more and more SaaS products out there, we need more and more integration. Sadly, it's always a nightmare for developers to build those integrations. They always have to reinvent the wheel, spend time doing those kind of authentication, thinking about those tokens, about those protocols, where at the end of the day, there is no value. Like you're doing something that is like it bothers you, but the value technically is basically none. The value is what you do with those APIs and the integration you're building, the user experience you're able to provide to your user, and that's really the key enabler that we think is needed, and especially now, OAuth is not new. It's not new at all, but when you start to ask questions to developers, and we ask those questions ourselves because we're developers also, and always, yes, we're not OAuth experts, and every time we had to deal with an OAuth API, it's always a nightmare, it's a headache, and you always ask the question, why?
So let's go in on that point a little bit. So we're talking about OAuth. Cédric, maybe you could take over from here. Thank you, Guillaume. It was a great show. You provided the value statement. We'll see, we'll catch up at the end. Just kidding.
Let me go for a walk.
So, Cédric, I've heard this word OAuth now like 30 times, and it's. Yes, you are definitely on the weird side of YouTube again. Welcome. And you're about to hear what OAuth is and what the role of a token is in that. So Cédric, maybe you can focus on OAuth a little bit. Why is it such a headache? Why is it such a pain in the ass? And what is it used for even?
Well, one word, security. It has been built to solve the security aspect basically, which is like, when you start from the very beginning, the story starts with like API token. Everybody is using API tokens. The main thing with API tokens is that first you need to make your customer aware what's an API token. So what's an API altogether, And second, it's always the same token that you exchange on the network, which is a risk, some kind in some ways, like especially if you are trying to target the client side, or if it's exposed. So an auth is basically a way to allow a third party to access your data. You've got a platform that sits in the middle, you've got a service, and you want to access data to this service. The user doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't need to know how it works or whatever. The only thing that he needs to do is to fill in the credentials for let's say Slack. So you are on a SaaS product, and then all of a sudden you want to list all your channels on Slack. What you're gonna do? You're gonna fill in your credentials for Slack. Slack is gonna give the permission to this platform, to this new SaaS product, to access on your behalf your channels. So it's basically a way to it's a third party. It's like a three-legged authentication, which is something that we can. This is something that we're very focused on. It's three-legged. That means that the user comes in, fills in his credentials, and then the provider. The provider validates the credentials, and then you get access to the platform. So very like the customer identity at this point.
So if I have a Slack and I have a Salesforce, and I want to get a notification when I get a deal closed, okay? And assuming there's not a native integration for that, which there might be, but I have to build it, okay? That's my job. Then the problem is that if Salesforce wants to authenticate on Slack as me or as somebody else, it would have to like do weird things like store a password and a username, which is utter horribleness, as you can imagine. You should avoid writing code that does things like that. So the OAuth is a way for you to one time as a human user go in and provide the credentials for Salesforce to authenticate onto Slack, and then it stores this token in such a way that Slack remembers, oh yeah, you've got that token that proves to me that you authenticated on me the right way that one time, and I will allow you to interact with me machine to machine. And you said that there's even something further than that, which really got my curiosity. You said something about a bearer magic token, and that sounds like maybe it's a general wrapper across all of these disparate various tokens that these 100 services that you support have. Is that the idea? And if so, how does that work? That sounds magic.
In the end, for Slack, it's kind of like they only provide one bearer token. So once you've generated a bearer token, it's fine. You can deal with it. Like it's fine. But for others providers, you can have out of the authentication of the handshake, you can get an access token, an expiration, and a refresh token, which is 3 different things. So basically, what we do under the hood, when you generate the identity, when you get an identifier, bearer identifier, what you are going to do is we're going to check every time if this token is still valid. If it's expired, then we're going to use the refresh token to refresh the token. And in some cases, this is the magic of OAuth, which is like everybody's implementing this. It's in his own way, even though there is a specification, but specification is like a word, like everybody's doing everything they want. In some cases, you're going to get, when you refresh a token, you're going to get a new refresh token at the same time, as well as an access token. In some cases, you're going to keep the refresh token. So it's kind of like everybody's dealing with it in a different way. Another example is Salesforce. Salesforce is even weirder. There is no way for you, once you authenticate, to know when it's going to expire, because it depends on the policy or whatever. So if you deal with a Salesforce API, the only way to do it is to ask using OpenID, which is another thing, which is to ask, like, is this token valid? Is this token still valid or not? And at this point, you're going to refresh the token. So it's like everybody's doing it different things, and that's the magic of, this is why we used internally Pizzly, and this is the main benefit we could see, is that when you get started with an API, the very first thing you want to do is generate a token, which is always a pain in the ass. If you think about it, GitHub is fine because it's a developer product, so you get to your developer section, you generate a token, that's fine, you can deal with it. But for most of products, even the endpoint to get a token is hidden into the documentation. So it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to find how to generate a token. So you can use a platform like Postman, for instance, to play with the API itself. But when it comes to generate this API, this token, this very first thing that you need to generate in order to get started, then it gets tricky. And this is why we wanted you to do it, because in the end, dealing with one API or dealing with thousands of APIs, with Pizzly, it's always the same process. You get your credentials, you generate the token, and that's it. You get started. The time to first API call for an API like Google Sheet, it's like 45 minutes. Without Pizzly, it gets down to 5 minutes with Pizzly, which is like why the main benefit I want you to keep using Pizzly, even for my side projects.
That sounds incredible. So your motto could be, we do magic in the back end so that you don't have to get bored by tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could work.
Alice is taking notes. Must tweet that later. So Alice, who uses this software? Can you kind of paint us a picture of the broad spectrum of people and organizations that you know of that use this software? Because obviously as an open source project, you don't directly talk to all of them. Some of them just take it away, go use it, and everybody's happy. But from those that you know, who uses it and what kind of problems are they solving?
Yeah, so, well, as you said, it's an open source project, so it's hard for us to get data and analytics on really who uses it. However, we do know for sure that we have a company called Typeform who's using it. And I think Guillaume can tell us a bit more about exactly what they solved. Would you like to speak about it, Guillaume?
Sure. So it's interesting. So Typeform, and especially the developer relation team at Typeform, the DevRel team that is usually in charge of third-party integration, and especially integration with the Typeform platform. So for example, Typeform, they have an Airtable plugin. So in Airtable, you can have plugin, and they built one. And this is the DevRel team at Typeform that built that. And actually, to be able to connect to their own API, to the Typeform API, they're using Pizzly because it's simpler and it's easier for them. So this is super interesting to see because they're consuming their own API to build that plugin, for instance. So they're using Pizzly because it's just simpler, and it's their own API. So imagine what it is when it's not your API. That's the interesting aspect. We've got other kind of story like that. I think Cédric Pento, which is a SaaS B2B company in Europe that is integrating with finance and banking platform through Pizzly again. And the interesting part and what we've seen from Pizzly is people doing pull requests for adding APIs that is not supported by default. And what we can extend is that people doing that, essentially they're using Pizzly to connect to those APIs that were not available on Pizzly firsthand. But yeah, I guess to your point and to what Alice said, we're mainly in the dark when it comes to usage of Pizzly until we know someone because they contact us or we know them from a different life basically, and they came across Pizzly and they use it. But since and I think it's something important to get for the audience, Pizzly is a fully open source project from Bearer, but it's not. There is no commercial product out of Pizzly. So Bearer and the company is not commercializing a product out of Pizzly. So for us, Pizzly is kind of a side project, something that we use ourselves. That is an extract of something we've built in the past at Bearer. But essentially, it's not. There is no real natural path to the commercial product at Bearer. So that's why also we don't invest heavily in marketing itself into Pizzly, because once again, it's not necessarily the idea of putting Pizzly out there.
Alice, do you have any metrics on the success of the software project? Do you guys track anything?
Yes. Well, I think one of the main metrics we're looking at is the one on GitHub, the number of stars, and we have more than 700 stars. We also look at the number of contributors, and I think we have over 30 contributors. So these two metrics may probably be the most interesting ones from our point of view.
Since when? How long? I mean, is it a new project, old project, middle-aged project?
Yeah, so the project was made available to the public in June this year. So let's say about 7 months ago. And we had a couple articles on Product Hunt and a couple other websites.
Wow, congratulations. That's pretty good growth, especially for a product it's not like a front end, right? It's not like, a new React framework or something like that, right? That millions of people can use right off. It's something integrators would use, and integrators are just a subset of the people who do web development anyway. But that's a great sign of success. Do you have any plans to market it? Do you feel like it attracts attention to the rest of your business offering when people find your company through that venue?
Well, as Guillaume was saying, we don't really want to invest too many resources into Pizzly. We actually want, the goal was really to give it away to the community so that the community would make it grow, because we believe that the community is probably cleverer than all of us. So we rely on everybody to chime in and make it better. And then the whole question really, the whole interesting challenge is, how do you actually use an open source dev tool as a marketing asset? And I don't have a clear answer to that. There's a lot of discussion online about this. I'd actually be interested in knowing you, Robert, at Platform.sh. Have you ever faced this sort of challenge?
Well, yes. Well, now that you ask, I have. In the long prehistory of Platform.sh, the company was actually called Commerce Guys, and we produced the Drupal commerce software, which is open source e-commerce software based on the Drupal framework. And we did that for quite a while as an agency who also produced like the software that we focus on. So one of our theory during that phase was, the more widely adopted the Drupal commerce software gets, the more demand there would be for, first and foremost, our website development services, but also, there would be demand for a marketplace of components that plug into that, so such as sales, payment tools or marketing tools or email tools, abandoned cart tools, analytics tools that are pertinent to e-commerce. And we also had the interesting theory that there would be demand for a hosting platform to host our open source project. And we built something that actually then turned into Platform.sh. And we say, oh, wait, we just built something super cool. Maybe we just want to focus on that for a while. So you got to watch out. You build some cool stuff and it might take your attention away from what you were doing before. But it worked out really well for us. So that's the short history of Platform.sh right there. In general, you do see a lot of companies who have success with or get benefit from their open source contributions. Maybe one of the rising stars, the hot names out there right now is Gatsby, and that's both an open source software and a commercial product, and the company named Gatsby, right? So it's really easy to tell that they're linked. But there's also like Vercel, who maintains Next.js, and people come to Next.js because they want this, site generator capability, and they realize that they could easily run it on Vercel, and that's definitely a symbiotic relationship. So that leaves me asking the question, I'm sure the audience is also asking the question, what relationship does the rest of the bearer business have to Pizzly? Do they go together in any way?
Not really. Actually, yeah, no, it's linked, but it's kind of connects. Basically, we built Pizzly out something we did in the past, and we believe that it didn't. It was being a commercial product was not really the point for such a product, and we didn't actually went to the exactly what you were saying, like commercializing an hosting version of Pizzly. Basically, this is not something we wanted to do because, well, essentially you can host it on Platform.sh, on Heroku, on wherever cloud you want, and I think there is already a lot of options out there, and I don't see where we could really have, I don't know, like an advantage or do something much better than what you could do already. I think there is enough platform out there to not build yet another one. And the main version and the main product basically of there is to manage and monitor your API's usage. So there is a link, obviously, because if you're building integration thanks to Pizzly, Bear comes after, because Bear is mostly a monitoring and a management platform for those API usage. But it's in that way that it connects, because more and more there are API usage, more and more the need of using Bear to manage and monitor those API is important. So it's kind of an enabler for us. Let's put it this way. But again, Pizzly, there is no component that, well, we decided not open source because there is a closed source version that you have to pay for. It's really something we gave to the community without even any thinking on the back saying like, yes, we're going to commercialize that. This is the plan. This is the big master plan. No, to be honest, there is no big master plan. It's just to help developers. Personally, even on my side project, I'm using Pizzly because it's just simpler when I use an API, and I'm very happy about it. And I'm sure others are. So that's basically why it's. I don't know. It's not a grand gesture. It's just something we did. So why not open source it? Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there is no big master plan again on the commercial aspect.
Well, how about the maintenance of the Pizzly software itself? How much time does that take on an ongoing basis? And do you have anything like a roadmap, or what's your engagement like with the developer community on that?
Cédric, I think you're the best to answer.
So right now, for instance, one of the things we are doing is we are refactoring, or we are updating the way everything is documented, because it used to be a wiki, and right now it's going to be it was kind of a pain, because then people couldn't submit any pull requests or improvement on the documentation. So everything was like us having to publish things. So this is the very first thing we've tried. On the side notes, we are looking at the GitHub issues, and we are helping out the developers out there for sure. There is one person in particular dedicated to this topic, looking at the pull request and managing the community. Development wise, if you tell me it's we need to make an improvement or something like that, obviously this person is going to get in touch with me. I'm following this project very closely as well, because it's a project I do care about. And if I see an improvement or something I could help on, for sure I'm going to jump on it.
Okay. Yeah. So when I think about the use cases, back to the use cases, because you've got that great graphic on your GitHub, and it's got my imagination going. Like, what would happen if I click all those buttons? What could I do with all that data, smushing it together, joyous data just colliding? What could I do with that? What are some of the interesting things you've thought of, or demonstrated, or seen, or imagined? Any special workflows or stuff that you can't do right now?
Well, I think I don't know if you research that a bit, but there is a lot of companies out there that build products, kind of Zapier for developers, if you put it this way, trying to mash up all those data, do crazy thing, automation, etc., etc. This is something that actually we don't do with Pizzly, and we didn't want to do for one specific reason, is that at the end of the day, what you're doing with APIs, it's up to you. And as a developer, what we've come to learn is that they all like to do things their own way. So imposing developers to do something that they know how to do in a different way doesn't really work that much. And the finest granularity that we found is like, you have the API, you can use the API very easily because we removed all the burden, all the pain in the ass of the authentication, which we learned was like 90% of the pain. Then you've got access to the API, and developers seems that they really want to have access to that API. You know, they don't want like a fake API on top of it, like or an API that just restrict what you can do with it, or that change the endpoint, or change the way you consume it, etc. There are a lot of things like that have been tried, but usually we don't like it because it means I don't really have access to the raw API. And I'm not going to be able to use the standard tool that I'm using. Maybe I'm using, I don't know, maybe I'm doing script and using Axios to consume API, and I don't want to do that the other way. I really like Axios, so why I'm going to bother to do that with a different way? And it is really that common denominator that we tried to find with Pizzly. So basically not do too much, and do just as minimum as possible, and essentially just removing that burden on the connection. And then what you do is really up to you. And obviously, when we look at some use cases, like I discussed previously, for example, with Typhon, so basically they build an Airtable integration with themselves, which is a plugin that runs on the front end of Airtable. When you think about it, it's kind of a bit magic what they do. But essentially, they build it the way they used to build those kind of integration, just removing one bottleneck, one burden, which is the authentication. And then after, you've got access to the API. Do whatever you want with the API. You don't want someone in between. You don't want someone to tell you, this is how you should use the API. This is what you can't use. Honestly, I think it's a bad idea overall. You live in a free world with a lot of API. Do use the API, how it has been built, and that's it.
So I used to use Yahoo Pipes, and I was really sad when they shut it down.
A lot of people were.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of companies these days are building something like, graphical workflow engines, low code, no code, point and click type of interfaces that all look a little bit like Yahoo Pipes to me, to do exactly what you just described, which is to, like, after you've got those connections in place, to take data. So like, go get all of my tweets in the last 24 hours and then put them through a filter and then put them on Instagram or something like that. Who knows? And you're saying, yeah, do that, but code is truth. Truth is beautiful. Be zen with the code. It's I'd say, like, it's not our mindset. So clearly, and we've discussed with a lot of developers, but when I say a lot, it's a lot. And before doing Pizzly and when we built Bear, and we really learned that if you really want those developers to use you in their core product, not as something that you're going to use for your side project. It's different. For your side project, you might use like tons of different tools, like just to have fun, just to try things. If you really want to use a technology in your core product, the product that makes money for you, that run your business, well, you don't want to depend on someone else. And especially when it comes to integrating with APIs, you really want to use the API in front of you that is provided by the provider and not something in between, because you don't trust that thing. And that was the point with Pizzly. That said, all the products that you mentioned are super useful, and we're even using some of them for us, but not in our core product again. So if I'm a SaaS and I need to integrate with many other SaaS, I'm not going to use those products most of the time. And funny thing is, I know at least one of such product that is using Pizzly behind the scene to ease with the authentication. Be my next question. So
yeah,
which product is that?
I actually can't tell you. No, I can't tell you that one. Sorry. And maybe there are more, and I hope there are more actually, and it would make a lot of sense, and I would be super happy about it because it's about removing that bottleneck for where it is. That's the beauty of open source, the beauty of the MIT license, and do whatever you want with it. But yeah, like the footprint, what we wanted to do with Pizzly, it's just that simple, efficient, Still, you do whatever you want with it. It's not holistic. It's not going to change everything, or it's not going to change how you do things. It's really a very granular piece of technology that removes one simple bottleneck, but that is really a pain in the ass.
So do you know any open source projects that provide that graphical front end and workflow engine that might integrate well with Pizzly, or have you ever seen anything used alongside Pizzly to provide that full experience?
There is something that, you probably know, I never know how to pronounce them. N8, and N8, like it's an open source Zapier.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce them either, but their DevRel person is Tanay Pant right now, I think. Yeah,
well,
that's
so
how
you
I
know it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Great, presentation on that, and it's exactly that. It's like all of the components in the browser, and you pull them, and you pull the arrows, and then you can set some rules about what happens to the data set when you iterate over it. And they've got preset filters and connectors that operate on that data, and you can write your own. So would that be a good option?
It's magic. Yeah, I'm sure that, if they didn't build that technology themselves, because I imagine they had to build it, otherwise they are doing it like we did in the past. So every time they want to have a new API, they need to deal with it. If they want to look into Pizzly to do that, well, for sure. And since it's an open source project, this is something that clearly we or someone in the community could look at it, how to actually have those two things playing nice together. That would obviously be actually amazing.
Great. Now, who did the integration with Platform.sh? When you run any web application on Platform.sh, there's always a little bit of work that needs to be done to tell Platform.sh in terms that it understands what services you need, what storage you need. Do you need a backend service like a database? What routing, with URLs has to happen? Who did all that?
Cédric, I guess you have the answer.
It's I think it's Ori Pickelman who did.
So it was Ori from our side. Okay.
Yeah. It's
it's funny because he came across Pizzly actually by himself, and he submitted a pull request. And so, okay, well, nice. Now we support Platform.sh out of the box. Great. That's the power of the community. So we
Thank you, Ori.
Exactly. But essentially, and I think it's interesting just to have a quick understanding of what's behind the scene. And Cédric, maybe you can explain just the stack, because it's very simple and it's very nimble, and that's the point. But how it works, what's the pieces?
Just one thing. Ori did a pull request. I'm having a look at it right now, and he did a pull request to integrate with Platform.sh, obviously, but also to integrate the API of Platform.sh into Pizzly. So now you can use Pizzly to integrate with Platform.sh as well. So you can install Platform.sh, Pizzly on Platform.sh to perform API calls to Platform.sh API.
Now, see, I missed that. I didn't scroll to the P's. I got stuck on the the M's and the N's. So Platform.sh is actually listed in that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now I've got to go back and try that, because that means
no reason.
What you could easily do then is you could hook up like an e-commerce. Let's say you wanted. Let's say you wanted to be a SaaS company, okay? Mm-hmm. And you had a GitHub repository that had your SaaS software. Let's call it a CMS, headless CMS. So you've got this open source headless CMS on GitHub, and you've got a website that says, hey, here's the cloud version of my super CMS, super headless CMS. We'll call it the Paul Revere CMS. I hope that doesn't exist. So the Paul Revere CMS with the headless, I don't know if you know. No, what am I thinking? It's not Paul Revere. Somebody from the audience, help me out. Who's the headless horseman? Okay, never mind. I'm getting distracted by old American culture. So you've got this headless CMS. You get this headless CMS. All I can imagine now is like this headless horseman riding with his head, throwing it at the Ichabod Crane. That's his name. We'll call it the Ichabod Crane CMS. Okay, that was a long rabbit hole down the weirdness of my brain. So the Ichabod Crane CMS is on GitHub, and you've got a web store saying, run the Ichabod Crane CMS in the cloud. And when a customer comes and makes a sale, then your website is connected to Pizzly, which is connected to the Platform.sh API, and your website could tell through Pizzly, Platform.sh, to provision a new copy of the Ichabod Crane CMS, and then get the details about that and give it back to the customer in the checkout, in the order, in their dashboard after they've paid you, and all of a sudden you've got a SaaS cloud software product for your Ichabod Crane CMS. I'm very inspired by this idea.
It's kind of functional.
So somebody actually came in at the beginning of the show and said, have I found, in the chat, they said, have I found the weirdest corner on YouTube? And I think now we definitively know, yes, sir, this is it. The Ichabod Crane CMS is the weirdest thing YouTube has to offer today. Wow, so that was great news. I'm really glad we asked that question about the history of it, and that Ori was so prescient and foresightful in doing that integration, because I actually know some people who will want to use that. Cool. Cédric, back to you. Let's get back to reality here. How's Pizzly put together?
It's several pieces. So you already mentioned the dashboard. There is also an API that is consuming this, the dashboard is consuming this API, and also you've got a proxy, and so this is Pizzly, where we are storing all those configuration, and then obviously you've got a database to store your credentials and everything, and then you've got some JS libraries to help you out to consume this thing. So you've got a Node library and a React integration, JS integration, to help you consume this, to help you go through the proxy and to specify several things. Sorry, going back.
Yeah, because you're mixing those two, so it's tough. It's tough because it's proxy, so you have multiple layers, obviously. But if you just look at Pizzly itself when you host it, it's a Node.js, it's a Postgre database. I guess that's mainly it. So it's pretty simple, and I think it's very important. And actually, we did simplify it when we open sourced it, because, like I said, it was a closed source, something we built for ourselves before. When we open source it, we simplified it a lot, and it's simple JavaScript, so that way you can have people contributing to it. And I think this is very, very important. You're not here to showcase.
Let me point out, though, that while you take an enormous pain in the ass, as Cédric has mentioned it several times, out of the API integration part of it, if you have to host a Node.js app and a Postgres database on your own with no help, then you've just shifted the pain in the ass to a different location.
No, because you're here. No, because there is Platform.sh.
That's what I was getting to. But because of Ori's great work and you putting this on the GitHub page, you can literally click the button, and a couple minutes later, you've got Pizzly deployed, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
There is even a demo version. If you want to test it out, there is a demo version that is available, where it's an instance of Pizzly that is available for everybody. We tell you, don't use your official client ID and client secret of APIs, because it's shared with everybody.
Why not?
Well, you never know. Just ask Ori. Use the master client ID and client secret of Platform.sh API. I know some people that are going to chase you, but yeah. So you can try it out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's something that we thought about, saying yes, you need to install that thing because it's proxy. But we think it's very simple thanks to a company like yours, where honestly it's one click.
So here's an interesting thought. And maybe if any of my colleagues are listening in on the show and can chat about this, one of the hard things about doing API integration is the whole sandbox concept, right? So if I'm doing e-commerce and I'm building my e-commerce site and I want to test a new payment gateway, then I want to be able to test it on the sandbox in development. And then when I go into production, I want it to actually charge real money on the actual API. Does Pizzly have a concept around that? And if not, maybe there's a way that Platform.sh can help.
So the short answer is no, we don't provide such thing right now, obviously. But Guillaume is thinking. So
well,
yeah, because the sandbox aspect is like when you ask people about the API and the point you're mentioning, sandbox is always a pain. Like you have providers that don't provide you a sandbox.
But just imagine for a second. Okay, for those providers, you can create 2 API tokens, right? Like you can just...
Well, with some you can't.
Okay, they're a pain in the ass. Okay, we're going to we're doubling down on the pain in the ass nomenclature. So just imagine, though, that you set up Pizzly on Platform.sh, and you do what Platform.sh does really well, which is to clone that entire Pizzly installation into a new branch. And you get a complete new copy on a new URL. I'm guessing that pretty much invalidates all your tokens at that point.
Yes.
Right? Which means that you could then simply go in and re-authenticate the dev Pizzly onto Sandbox for those who have it. Sandbox APIs, and then you would be able to safely do your development using that version of the Pizzly without having to change any of the code. It strikes me that possibly you could also put the different endpoints between the live and the Sandbox APIs for those who have them, and payment gateways usually do, at least they do. You could put those in environmental variables, and then when Pizzly tries to connect to, PayPal or whatever, it would know to always use the Sandbox credential. Could you foresee anything like that, or do you think that's a value add for developers?
No, I think it is. But if you there is one aspect on Pizzly itself, you can have multiple instances of the same API already. So you don't need to have another instance of entire Pizzly to have 2 instances of Google Sheet API, for instance. You can do that. It's not named like Sandbox, like you were saying. So probably if you're a bit structured and you want to do things in a very clean way, I think what you're mentioning is probably a great idea. That said, that way you have like really your Sandbox environment absolutely self-contained, even your Pizzly Sandbox environment. But I think the whole point and concept of having proxy is to, or whatever you call it, it's to be able to encapsulate some part of the complexity and to isolate it. So doing things like you mentioned is easier because obviously everything is at the same place. And absolutely.
Sense. So when I write a new integration, what are the steps?
Simply just like if the API exists, it's fine. You don't have to do anything. You just go on the providers page, API, Slack, or something like that.
No. Like a Slack competitor is just created today, and tomorrow I want to do their integration so that Pizzly has a button for them.
Okay.
No, you want to add an API to Pizzly?
Yeah, we'll call them TAUGHT. Okay, TAUGHT.
Okay, I'm already missing the Horseman right now.
Right. So I want to go do the TAUGHT integration.
Okay.
What's the process for adding a new integration to Pizzly at the code level?
Just specify a JSON file and that's it.
It's just a JSON file?
Yeah, just one JSON file, and everything is going to be basically when you start the instance, we're going to list all the JSON file that you have, and they are going to be instantly available. So there is nothing much more except looking at the documentation, which is the pain points. That's the process that we've simplified. You don't have to go in the documentation to find this out on your own, and everybody has to do the same thing all over again. You just specify it in a JSON file, and you connect to it you specify the authorized URL, you specify the access token URL, and this kind of thing. So the three-legged, in the three-legged process, you need 2 URLs. You specify you get how you send the data to it. You specify the base URL, and that's it.
So all Ori Pekkelman had to do was write a JSON file?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not as impressed anymore. No, I am.
No, it's not totally not out of a
totally
genius.
impressed.
I'm gonna shut up if you want. Okay.
Yeah, no, I actually just looked at one of the files with Salesforce. Well, like Salesforce is a bit insane because the API is complex and it's a complex product. So obviously it's not that simple. It's 18 line of JSON configuration, so it's nothing. And I think the best way to actually explain how easy it is, we did participate in Oktoberfest. That DigitalOcean.
Hacktoberfest, yeah. Some of our people did as well.
And we did it, and we put together a list of something like 20 or 30 APIs that people expressed some interest, and we got tons of pull requests. People just added APIs, like every day added new APIs, and why? Because it was simple.
Pull requests are the truest form of love in the modern age. Wow.
True.
So I have a non-technical question.
Oh.
Going back to the GitHub repository, maybe I need to repaste that really quickly into the chat that's going out to all the viewers in case anybody wants to look along with me. So going to the GitHub page for Pizzly, the OAuth integration proxy. I see a bear wearing 3D glasses who kind of looks like he's a member of Daft Punk. What's going on here?
So do you know what a Pizzly is?
It's actually a thing.
OAuth integration proxy?
That's one of the 2 good answers. But there is another one.
Okay.
So it's a bear, actually. It's an hybrid between a polar bear and a grizzly
Daft
bear.
Punk.
That's the French touch.
Exactly. That's the class.
What do you get when you cross a polar bear and Daft Punk? You get Pizzly. Okay, so it's a polar bear and a grizzly bear?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what a Pizzly is. And so, we made it a little bit more futuristic. It looks like Daft Punk.
So in your minds, there was like a meeting of 2 APIs, we'll call them bears, and they did, we'll call it a handshake, and what resulted was an integration, and Pizzly was born.
Exactly. You can really see the movie with all these special effects, and
it was a
you've got
very special handshake.
Like that magic token.
They exchanged magic tokens. Oh. Okay, guys, I think we should really end the episode right here because
this is the best end.
It's starting to feel like Friday evening over here in Europe, and I'm starting to suspect that none of us were telling the truth about what we were drinking before we started the show. But Guillaume, Alice, Cédric, it's been lovely chatting with you. I look forward to trying Pizzly out myself more, and especially with the Platform.sh API integration, I would like to use it to launch projects in the future. Just because that seems like a super cool way to flex. And of course, if somebody wants to use it to build a SaaS product, that seems like a natural cornerstone of that whole plan. So thank you very much. Thank you, dear audience, for your lively commentary in the chat. And tune in next Friday for the next episode. And have a happy 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.